Hey there, my name is Gary Sims and this is Gary Explains. Now, Amazon recently released a new iteration of its Kindle ebook reader, and the day that it was available for order, I ordered one and I've been using it ever since to find out how this device is. So if you want to find out my thoughts on the new Kindle ebook reader, please let me explain. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to say that this is a completely independent review. I went to the website and ordered this myself, and there's no sponsorship or anything like that involved in this video. Okay, now, I want to do two things. First, I want to talk a little bit about Kindle itself, the idea of the Kindle reader and the Kindle ebooks. And then I want to talk about this particular device. If you already know about Kindle and you're all familiar with it, then I'll leave a little link in the description below so you can jump to the right time code where I talk just about this device. Okay, so we're talking about ebook readers. E there stands for electronic. So that's a book that you can read on an electronic device. That could be a smartphone, could be a tablet, or it could be a dedicated ebook reader. And of course, the idea is that they are cheaper because there's no actual printing to be done and no actual book that needs to be sent to you, let's say, through the post. Now, of course, Amazon are a very, very big ebook seller, and Kindle is their ebook brand, and the Kindle Reader is their dedicated device for reading those ebooks. Now, the idea is, of course, is that you can buy the ebook. It's cheaper because there's no printing involved, and you can access it almost instantaneously because it gets downloaded onto your device and you can read it as you're going along. Another advantage is, of course, it can be read on multiple devices. So, for example, you can be reading it on the dedicated ebook reader, and then you have to go out, but you're just about to find out who done it, and you really want to read the next few pages, but you can't. And then you go out, but of course, when you go out, at some point you might be waiting for somebody, you might be in a queue, something like that. So you can then get out, let's say, your smartphone, an Android device or an iPhone, and it will sync automatically with where you were on your ebook reader. And then you can read those next few pages, find out what happened, and then carry on enjoying the rest of your evening. And when you get home, your ebook reader will also be synced with that latest place that you've reached in the book. Now, one thing to note about an ebook reader is that it's not actually good for all types of books. For example, it's great if you want to read a novel or, you know, some kind of biography or something like that. But actually, if you want to read, let's say, for example, a children's book, we have found that it's much easier and actually a much nicer experience to read a child's book with an actual physical book. And that's also true of kind of, you know, bigger format books, you know, so for example, illustrated encyclopedias or graphic novels or comics or things that are outside of the kind of the standard paperback kind of format don't necessarily translate well onto an ebook reader. They might translate a bit better onto, let's say, a larger tablet, let's say a 9-inch or 10-inch tablet. But actually we found, for example, that giving a child an actual book to read, or even a teenager an actual book to read, is actually better than giving them a Kindle. But for me, because I like to read lots of novels or biographies or history books or technical books, they translate quite well over to the Kindle format. So what I wanted to say was, Kindle hasn't actually been a complete replacement for all the kind of books that we have in our household, but for me personally, for that kind of reading of intense reading of material, it's been an absolute brilliant. I've been using a Kindle reader since 2011. And another thing I wanted to mention before we get into the device is that I was concerned that the impact that readers and ebooks had on actual bookshops. And for example, in the UK, there was a very large bookshop chain called Waterstones, and for a while it looked like that chain was going to absolutely close down and it was going to disappear. But last Christmas, so only a few months ago, I went into a Waterstones to buy Christmas books. As I said, there are lots of formats of books that don't necessarily translate well over to a Kindle, and I was really pleased to see that actually it was the busiest shop in the whole of the shopping centre, or the shopping mall, as maybe the Americans would say. And so there is very much still a place for physical books. So let's not think about one being better or competing with the other. They are complementary, and I think we are seeing really that complementary model as we go along. Okay, let's talk now specifically about this device. Okay, so Amazon have launched a new model of Kindle Reader in their basic entry-level line. Now, over the years, there have been different types of Kindle readers with some interesting names on them. But basically where we're at is this. You have a level entry reader, which is the cheapest one that you can get hold of. You then have a more expensive one that will have maybe additional things like a higher resolution screen or waterproofing, maybe more storage. And then you have a really expensive one, which at the moment is called the Oasis, which is kind of out there in terms of, you know, the luxury, and I don't understand the Oasis model. So today we're talking about the very basic Kindle reader, the cheapest one you can get that gets you into reading ebooks on an actual dedicated Kindle device. Now this one costs just $89, and if you pay $109 you get it without any kind of adverts. Now it has this thing where there are adverts shown on the lock screen when you wake up the device. Maybe there's even a little banner at the bottom that shows you an advert for a book, and that's meant to, you know, supplement the pricing so you don't have to pay so much for it. Normally I buy them without the advertising, but I got this one with the advertising just to see what the current state of advertising was. It's not intrusive, but it's there always in front of you. Now, maybe you actually will be interested in some of the recommendations. I say I like to get it without the advertising. So it's the very basic one. So what does that mean? What that means is that you get a screen with 167 pixels per inch. You get a touch screen, and you get Wi-Fi only, and you get 4 gigabytes of storage, of which 2.75 gigabytes is available for you to download books onto. Now, if you go to the more expensive one, the Paperwhite as it currently is, you get a higher resolution screen, and you get more storage, you get waterproofing and other features like that. So what I want to do is now for a second is just to compare the difference in a 4th generation Kindle from 2011 to the modern Kindle. These are both the basic entry ones, both with that same 167 pixels per inch display. But of course, way back then in 2011, there was no touch screen, there was no backlight. If you wanted to turn the pages, there were clicking buttons on the side. If you wanted to navigate, you had to use this kind of up, down, left and right. And there were buttons for home and for the menu and so on. If you look at the modern one, there are no buttons on it at all other than just the on-off button. And of course, a port for charging it inside of the USB. And it's very easy to hold in the hand, very light, a good size. You've got good size bezels so that you can hold it and read, you know, however you kind of, you know, like holding these things. They're easy to read. There's plenty of places to grip on them. But you get now a touch screen, and here's the big thing for this new one, you get a backlight. Now let's just talk about e-ink displays and backlights for a moment. The big difference between reading on a Kindle reader compared to, let's say, a smartphone or a tablet is the display. Now on a smartphone or a tablet, you've got an OLED or an LCD display, which of course is being powered on with the lighting that's incorporated into that display. And of course it's draining the battery on your phone or whatever. And it's never as crisp or paper-like, that's the idea of course, than an e-ink display. Now an e-ink display is a very interesting display where the pixels are set in kind of their on or off position, and they stay there even when there's no power being applied to the device. So you can actually just leave an image on the display and there it will stay, you know, for years, because you set the pixel and without power to it, they still stay in that position. Now the idea is that that's much more like print. You just set a pixel to either black or white, and then you just read it, and it stays there. It doesn't matter how long you want to read that page for, whether you're a slow reader or a fast reader, whether you put it down and come back to it or not, ignoring power saving where it switches off. But in terms of the display, the same image is still there. It hasn't taken any more energy to actually power that display, because it just stays in that static position. Now that is actually really, really easy on the eyes. I was skeptical at first when I first got my first Kindle way back in 2011, but it's absolutely true. Just kind of, you know, sitting in an armchair or laying in bed, or if you're on the beach or wherever you like to read, on a train, actually reading with that e-ink display is much, much nicer than reading on a smartphone. That's why I don't use my smartphone for reading, unless it's quickly just to catch up or to find out what happens next. But if I'm actually going to do some reading, I do it on my Kindle. And the other, of course, difference between this and, let's say, a smartphone, of course, is the form factor. This is much wider, much more like, let's say, a paperback or a novel, something like that. Whereas even a large phone, let's say, like the Note series, is actually still quite narrow in the form factor. Now, the big difference between the basic Kindle and the more advanced one, the Paperwhite, is the pixel density. So you get 167 pixels per inch on the entry-level one and 300 pixels per inch on the better one. Now, I also have a Kindle Voyage, which has the 300 pixel per inch display. And I really did look at them side by side. I've been used to reading from both of them. And if you look with a magnifying glass, and here I've taken some photos with a high resolution camera and I'm zooming in, you can see the difference between them. But when you're just reading and you're not staring at just, staring at that one word to see whether you can see the pictures on it, you don't actually notice the difference at all. If you do read books, let's say, that have got, maybe pictures in them, diagrams, graphic novels and so on, then you probably are also going to see a bit more of a difference. If you're mainly just reading text with maybe the occasional diagram, the occasional kind of bit of graphics, then you're not going to notice a difference at all. Now, the amazing thing about the new entry-level Kindle is that you now get this extra lighting that actually is, they call it front lighting using LEDs, that actually does a better job of making there a contrast between the background of the e-ink display and the actual text. It's certainly very grey on the older Kindles, and that was fine because you could read it very, very well. But now once you get this lighting involved in it as well, you do get that higher contrast. Now this new one uses 4 LEDs, and it really is interesting to see the contrast that you can get when you have that front lit e-ink display. And I'll show you here the new Kindle with the light off next to an actual 4th generation Kindle reader. Here it is again with it on at halfway, and here it is on at full power, and here it is on at full power compared to a Kindle Voyage at full power, so you can see the difference between the displays. Now, one difference between, let's say, the Voyage and the Paperwhite compared to the basic level entry Kindle reader is that it doesn't do auto brightness. Now, that's really, it probably costs them absolutely nothing to add that feature, but actually they have to make a difference between these two devices. So on this one, if you want to change the level, you have to do it manually. So if you're in a very bright outside, or you suddenly go into, let's say reading in bed, you turn the light off, then that bright light might kind of get you in the eyes. You're going to have to turn it down manually, whereas on the other ones, it would do that automatically. So what's my overall opinion of the new Kindle reader? Absolutely a thumbs up. Now again, I'm speaking from someone who's used Kindle readers for many, many years. I do really enjoy them. This one is certainly a great advancement over the basic ones that existed before. It's not everything that you'd get in the Paperwhite, or in my case, I've got the Voyage, which has now been discontinued. If you're already into Kindle and you've got one of the older entry-level ones and you're thinking about upgrading, then you can definitely upgrade to this one because you've got the touch screen and you've got that front lighting, which makes quite a big difference. If you're already into Kindle and when you want to do an upgrade and you're thinking, well, I really do like this Kindle, then of course you could go for the Paperwhite because that is a nice upgrade from what you've already got. If you've got a Paperwhite or a Voyage or an Oasis, those are much higher models, and this will be a downgrade. Even though it's the latest one, this will be a downgrade because those already have greater features than what you get in the basic model. Okay, that's it. My name's Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really do hope you enjoy this quick look at the new Kindle reader. I personally think it's a great buy, particularly if you are into reading ebooks. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and well, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. This is Gary Explains. Now, whether of sides